Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. It's Friday afternoon, February the 10th, and it's our college basketball edition. And like every Friday afternoon, I'm joined by my buddy and great handicapper, Mr. Sean Higgs of picksandparleys.net. Sean, how are you?
Pretty good. Getting ready for it is. I think yes, we have 152 college basketball games, but I think there's a football game on Sunday. People,
Yeah, Super Bowl weekend. Let's make it all a festivity. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm looking forward to that Super Bowl, no doubt about it. I have a strong feel on one of the sides. I'm going to release a total, but we discussed that all off air, so no sense beating it to death, and we don't want to give too much away here on the show. Even though it's the most overhyped in terms of our industry, in terms of sales, you got a million guys trying to sell one game, so it's to me.
And again, it's one game. You don't,
Yeah. You don't have to bet the kitchen sink on it.
Exactly.
So,
we talked about this when we did the show, me, you, and Jesse, about doing that. You don't have to do it, folks. It's just a game.
But college
fancy name in front of it.
College basketball, 142 games you said on the card tomorrow, Sean?
152.
152, which is pretty much the norm on a college basketball Saturday in February. You know what? If we can't find betting value on a Saturday card in college basketball, we need to look for another line of work. Now, that's not to say we don't have losing days on a Saturday through the course of the season. But the bottom line is it certainly puts us in a more advantageous position than, for example, a Monday night, which has 5 games in power conferences.
Yeah, and the rest swag action on a Monday.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we're going to be looking at, I'm going to look at Duke and Virginia, and you're going to be looking at Indiana and Michigan. Both games will be on ESPN. Duke and Virginia go at 4:00. Indiana, Michigan at 6. And we both got a lot on the agenda, getting ready for college basketball on Saturday in terms of getting our picks up and doing our due diligence with our handicapping in college basketball. So let's get right to them, Sean. Indiana right now is a pick 'em, and the total is 147. The game will be played at Ann Arbor. Michigan playing good ball all of a sudden of late. I had him the other night, like I told you, off air, as I laid to 12 against Northwestern. And it was hairy for a little bit, but they pulled away at the end. And Indiana also coming off a big win over Purdue last week. So what do you got here?
Yeah, as you mentioned, they're playing pretty good, Michigan. You look at the 14-10 record, like, they're not that good. But you know what? It started out slow. 8-5 in conference play, not bad. Listen, it's Purdue in a top of 12-2, and then these guys are the same. Indiana 8-5, a couple teams tied here, a couple 7-5 teams. So you have a big chunk of teams in the middle, and then you have Purdue up top. And Minnesota's 1-11, who's just been atrocious, but that's whatever it is there. I'm like a Michigan here. One, as you mentioned, 3 wins in a row for them, playing good. They're at home. They take care of the ball. They don't really foul a lot. You mentioned the Hoosiers, big win. Not only over Purdue the other day, then they followed up with a solid win over Rutgers, no little flat spot for them. Yeah. But coming on the road, here we go. I talk about this all the time. You see a lot of splits in college basketball on the road, right? Or kind of close games. In this game, let's say the fact that's a pick. Maybe, this is at a offshore. I saw one of the other kind of places pop up here at about a 1 with Michigan favored here. Unranked teams over ranked. We talked about this all the time, whether we're doing a show on Tuesday or Wednesday. It is just an autoplay for me most of the time. Even on a short line like this, a pick, even if there were a +1 or something on a short number versus ranked team. I think it's a 70% trend this season already at 24-10, 25-11, something along those lines. I'm taking Michigan. Yeah. Solid defense. Don't turn the ball over. Indiana, again, you play 2 grinders. Now Michigan, again, at 14-10, they're trying to position themselves to make a little run here. You're not guaranteed of a tournament. I know a lot of times the NCAA likes to take a lot of teams from the bigger conferences, and 17-10 could get you in there. But let's be honest, you got to get some wins. Knock off a ranked team, it's knocked off the number 1 team. So get a good win here in Michigan home. And Jet, listen, they got a couple good players on the team. Howard's kid, Jet's pretty good. A couple of youngsters they put in the rotation.
The big guy is excellent. I think
he's having a nice.
Dickinson I believe is his last.
They got a big guy inside. It's pretty solid.
Yeah,
He's
big white guy. He's but the only thing about Michigan, I'm not sold on Juwan Howard as a coach. I just think that he's able to recruit very well for obvious reasons. Former NBA player, an imposing figure.
Yeah.
Two kids that are playing for him right now. I believe is it two sons he's got playing.
Yeah, two. The one kid's probably an NBA kid.
Yeah.
The other one maybe not so much, but
it seems like.
But that's what we saw that early from them when they weren't really winning games. It was like the coaching was bad.
Yeah.
Right? He kind of lets them play, and this is a spot here. Indiana's the same kind of team. They bring in a lot of recruits. The coaching had been so-so a couple years. How about Michigan? 9-1 last 10 versus Indiana, by the way. So they've outplayed them. So I'm gonna take them here, small dog, whatever it is at home, pick them.
And without looking at those past results, unless you have them in front of you, I would venture to say they're probably 5-0 in their last 5 at home against Indiana. How
about last year? Indiana got them here in Michigan, 74-69. That was
at Michigan. Yeah,
at Michigan. Everything
else.
Yeah, that
surprises me because I would have figured the one game they won was in Bloomington, where they're real tough.
It was actually I just looked it up. It was last year here.
Yeah, so.
March 10th.
So much for that thought process.
Well, anyway, March 10th. No,
I'm talking about my thought.
Oh yeah, but I was thinking March 10th could have been a conference game, or a tournament game, but they still play because Big Ten plays later, so I don't think that was a tournament game.
March 10th was, if it was March 10th, it was definitely a conference tournament game. And it was at a neutral site.
Yeah, you know what? Let's see where it says it was at here.
My thought process.
Postseason. Absolutely right.
So my thought process is still alive, Mr. Higgs.
It is.
So if that's the only win they've had, I would say that they've dominated them in regular season play over the last 4 or 5 years. That's a safe assumption, because if that's the only loss they had, it came in conference tournament, and they most likely are 4 or 5-0 at home against Michigan recently, and they haven't lost to them in the regular season probably in the last at least 3 years. Yeah. So we'll see. You got Michigan
going back to 2016. I don't see a win for Indiana.
Yeah. So Michigan as a pick'em over Indiana from Mr. Sean Higgs. And Sean is a volume handicapper. I could assure you folks will have a lot of games on tap. Is that a safe assumption for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll probably have at least like 15 games from 20. I've been trying to rein it in a little bit. Not rein in, but when it's like I went 6-4 yesterday. I went 6-5 the day before. I think the day before that I went 2-0. Like it's just been, and I'm 52% on a year. I'm right there. I'm up a little bit, then I'm down a little bit. I haven't really had a big breakout, but it is what it is. You bet a lot of games. You're gonna, you
got to keep grinding though. That's the thing. You can't get discouraged. Keep grinding. You make subtle adjustments. You don't overreact. You don't make a knee-jerk response to a losing day. You don't carry it with you. The whole things that we've talked about time and time again. And I think you do that better than anybody. That I know in the industry.
With the amount of games I got it. So I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to keep to these. And there's another section of games I want to bet. Like they fit kind of my low parameters out lucky games. But I'm going to say, you know what? I can't put 10 games out when I'm just kind of hovering 500. And sometimes they're 7-3, and I'm like, well, you know what? At least my numbers are okay. At least I feel, emotionally, Ross. Even if you didn't bet, you're like, you know what? At least the numbers are turning around. I could kind of because it's money I bet. I don't want to just throw it out there to do it.
I've been concentrating. What I try to avoid is these disastrous 2-14 runs.
Yeah.
If your worst run is 1 or 2 games below 500 over a 2-week period of time, the winning's coming pretty soon, right? So you're staying afloat. And if that 1 or 2 games below 500 over a 2-week period of time was preceded by a 60% run, that's the name of the game, folks.
Exactly.
Now, not to say that even though I don't like that to happen, we're all susceptible to that happening. It's happened to all of us. It will happen again. Okay. And it's how you recover.
It's like basketball's what, college hoops, 5 months, 7 days a week, all types of games. You're going to have runs. It's going to be, like I said, 6-5. Then I got like those 6 and 8 days all day, 6 and 8 on a Saturday, 4, and you're like,
Yeah.
And you're down for a week, and next week you're like, all right, here we go. 2-0, start out 2-0, 4-3, 6-5, 6-4. Here it comes a little bit. You're getting those half-point wins, right? Like, all those, you remember all the half-point losses. You're like, again, another half-point loss. Then all of a sudden you got to win. You're like, oh, finally, it feels good about it. It's like,
yeah. See, I'm a proponent. I cannot stand, especially in basketball, whether it be the NBA or college basketball. I will buy off a hook every time.
Yeah.
Every time. A whole number, I could live with a push, but I can't live with losing by half a point. And by buying off that half a point, if you get a push because of it, or a win because of it, whatever the case may be, it's usually a push if you're buying off the half point. If that happens once out of every 11 times you would have lost the game, you're ahead of the curve. People don't realize that. They get more intimidated by having to pay the extra juice than they are about the big long-term result. How many games fall? How many times out there, you people watching, I don't have to ask Sean this, how many times have you lost a game by half a point in either college basketball or NBA just over the last 3 years? Think about it.
Happened like 3 weeks.
And that's where all the conspiracy theorists come out, when
It's
they lose
fixed.
by half a point.
Yes,
It's
I
definitely
love it.
fixed. All right, I'm going to look at Duke and Virginia, 4:00 Eastern time, ESPN. The game will be played in Charlottesville. Right now, Virginia is a 5-point favorite, and the total is 126.5. There's nothing. Look, Duke's unranked and Virginia's ranked. So you leave it out of the equation, in my eyes, when a team is a 5 or 6 point favorite. It means nothing when it comes to unranked and ranked. To me, it's like Sean says, when you have an unranked team that's a favorite over a ranked team or a short dog, that's another story. Okay, like what he just described. But to me, the perception here among public betting is I would go out on a limb and say that Duke is going to be a popular play here because
It's Duke.
It's Duke, and they're getting 5 points. Which they even I think there's a 5.5 out there too. So, I mean, bottom line is people are gonna be lured in by the big brand name, getting the points, even though they're playing an excellent Virginia team. Look, this is a Duke team that's 8-5 in ACC action this year. However, they're 6-0 in ACC home games on the road, Sean. 2-5 in true road games. There are only 2 wins on the road in ACC action against a horrible Georgia Tech team and against Boston College by 1. Now, Boston College has improved a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but at the point of the year where they played them, they were a struggling unit, and they barely got by that. This is also a Duke team. I think I can't overstate enough is taking care of the basketball in games like this is vitally important against a team like Virginia that limits your offensive possessions because of the pace they play at. And Duke, number 14 in the ACC right now in turnovers committed. And how we base that on is when you look at KenPom and you see when a team has like 20% of their offensive possessions end with turnovers, that's a high rate, and Duke is somewhere in that area. On the other hand, Virginia is number 1 in the ACC in forcing turnovers. So, I mean, that is a key component to me when handicapping a game of this sort. Duke is an excellent offensive rebounding team, but you're not going to beat Virginia or stay within striking distance just solely on your offensive rebounding ability, in my opinion, especially when you're only getting 5 in the game. Also, Duke, I mean, they say the three-point shot is the great equalizer for underdogs in college basketball, and I believe that. With that being said, Duke is a terrible, terrible three-point shooting team. They do most of their damage in the interior. And like I said, the second chance opportunities and offensive rebounds for easy putbacks. That's where they get a lot of their offense from. And in this particular instance, I don't think that's going to be as prevalent. I think they'll get their fair share and they'll score their fair share of points that way, but not what they're used to against what would be deemed to be a more inferior opponent than Virginia. This is a Virginia team that's 6-0 in conference play at home this year. They've traditionally had a strong home court. They have one again this year. They're 18-4. Their only 4 losses have come by a combined 19 points, the worst of which was their only home loss, and that came against number 2 Houston by 8. So nothing to be ashamed of there. And a huge edge in experience. And granted, Duke has a lot of one and dones, right, Sean? And they perennially bring in some of the best recruiting classes in the country with some high-priced freshmen, or I should say high-profile freshmen. It's high price now too, right?
Now, yeah.
So, but Duke is number 290 in the country in terms of Division I experience, averaging 1.38 years per player on the roster, while Virginia brought all 5 starters back from a year ago, and they have 3.6 years of Division I experience per player. Again, may not be as talented an entire roster, but experience goes a long way, especially when you play for Tony Bennett, and you get very few one and dones or early exits for Virginia. Continuity is unbelievable for a school that has that much success in college basketball. I'm going to lay the 5 here, Sean. I'm going with Virginia minus the 5.
They lost by 20 last game to Miami on the road. They lost by 24 at NC State. They lost by 8 at Clemson. Virginia Tech, I had Virginia Tech that game. Virginia Tech was like a pick 'em or a 1 favorite. They went a 3. You talk about talent-wise. Yeah, Duke's got NBA draft picks on their team. But they're still freshmen.
Yeah.
You're freshmen going on versus a team, and you mentioned Tony Bennett. Hi. I mean, you have a new first-year head coach at Duke. Still kind of, okay, yeah, you learned from a great coach, but he's not here. Yeah. And now it's you calling the shots and running this kind of stuff. This takes time.
Yeah.
Like, all right, the talent is there, and you could beat up a lesser team. We see it. I mean, the Duke, they're 17-7. It's not like they're, it's like 95.
It's not your atypical Duke team, you know?
No, they'll beat the bad teams, which is, they beat teams at home like most teams do. I mentioned Michigan the other game. Duke's 12-0 at home. Yeah, you win at home. That's what you do. You go on the road and different ball game. You lose by 20. I mean, Virginia should win this game by 10 points.
Yeah, you brought up those 5 losses in conference road games this year, and those came by an average of 13.6 points per game. And Sean just touched upon that.
I mean,
and that's a bit askew because they lost 1 game by 3. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, 3 of those losses out of the 5 were really bad. And I think you touched upon every one of them. Miami being the most recent by 22. I faded them in that game, thankfully.
And I think I did the show with you here. We had NC State over them. I think I did the show with you on NC State going to Saturday game, but they beat them by 20.
Crushed them. Yep. Virginia Tech crushed them, if I'm not mistaken.
Or Tech got them by 3. That was a close game.
That was a close game. Okay. Anyway, I'm taking Virginia. I'm going to lay the 5 against Duke. Sean likes the Michigan Wolverines at home as a pick'em over Indiana. Folks, both of those games played on are televised by ESPN. The Virginia game goes at 4. Sean's game goes at 6 o'clock Eastern. So dabble in, folks. Make some money. We went 3-0 the other day with our college basketball picks between myself, Sean, and Jesse, and we're looking at a 2-0 here for Saturday. And like Sean just alluded to, he's got probably around 15 picks tomorrow in college basketball. You can get those all at picksandparleys.net. Don't forget to check out Sean's daily podcast, which airs live noon Eastern time every day, midday money.
Midday money. And I do late night money now too at 10 p.m. Eastern. It'll in another 2 weeks it'll move till probably later because the tournament games get the lines up. But come to the midday money show. I put up like a 7 or 8 or a big pack of games for like $39.
Yeah,
I got a special on the midday money, $31 for a week, and you get everything.
How could you beat that, folks? How could you especially with a guy who's got a history, a long track history.
We win a little. We're winning too. It's not just we do win sometimes. It's not.
My college basketball 61-47 since November 17th after a 1-3 start. 61-47 since. NBA on an 18-11 run, which is good for 62%. Cashed in nice last night with Orlando, plus a 6.5, an easy outright winner. Again, folks, college basketball totals. I do very well with totals. 24-10 with my last 34 college basketball totals, and I can assure you I'll have at least one, if not more, on Saturday's card. You can find me at rbwins.com. Again, Sean Higgs at picksandparleys.net. Don't forget Sean's week or daily midday money podcast. Easy for you to say. Until the next time, for Sean Higgs and Ross Benjamin, we'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Have a great Super Bowl weekend. Have fun, but stay safe, folks. Take care and God bless.